Startling revelations unfolded when investigative journalist Smith placed everything on the line to unveil a dubious corporation. Armed with his dependable drone, he infiltrated the heavily fortified facility, capturing incriminating footage of their illicit activities. However, just as he was on the verge of retrieving his drone, it was mercilessly shot out of the sky, leaving Smith in shock as he hastily retreated from the scene. Driven by an unwavering determination to share his discoveries with the world, Smith made the bold choice to defy the law and put his life on the line. Smith was an investigative journalist and used his drone as his cover weapon. While a toy for most people, Smith's drone enabled him to capture what society was not meant to see. When Smith encountered a dead end in his years-long investigation of a shadowy corporation, he knew precisely what to do. He used all his contacts to find the exact location of an elusive organization well hidden in the mountains. Unfortunately, there was no clear way to access it, surrounded by treacherous unpaved roads, fortified with barbed wire fences, and stringent access restrictions in place. Smith had acquired satellite images revealing that he could fly undetected over the compound. So, equipped with a high-quality camera and microphone, the drone finally became Smith's tool to capture evidence against this corporation. All that remained was to wait for the perfect moment. This was clearly a dangerous mission. If security caught Smith, he knew he would face jail time. To ensure his safety, the journalist provided a trusted colleague with his exact location and plan. While the young man would have loved to get the authorities involved, he just couldn't trust them. So, after a week of preparation, Smith drove a few hours through rugged mountains and finally reached the facility. The facility stood as a fortress, guarded around the clock. Smith understood the gravity of the situation and the need for stealth. One misstep, and he would be stranded with no hope of escape. He patiently watched the guards patrol the walls and tried to find any blind spots. While it looked like there weren't any, a tiny window of opportunity soon emerged. The middle of the wall was rather dark and left unguarded for at least 5 minutes as the security guards made their rounds. Smith knew he wouldn't get a better opportunity than this, so he took his drone out, prayed that nobody would notice the small device whizzing through the air, and started maneuvering it toward the fortress walls. Thankfully, everything went as planned, and within seconds, the drone managed to fly over and inside the fortress. Smith watched the live feed on his laptop as the drone hovered over the compound. Then he saw something that proved all his worst fears. Smith knew he had stumbled upon the crucial evidence he needed to confirm the organization's illicit activities. But just as he was preparing to retrieve his drone, a voice bellowed, "Hey, stop." This startled Smith, and he lost control of the drone. The journalist looked around, trying to figure out if the voice had come from inside the compound or around him. Thankfully, it was from the inside. Someone had spotted the drone. Smith hastily pressed the retrieve button, with not a minute to waste, but it was too late. Just as the drone was on the edge of crossing the fortress wall, it was gunned down. Smith saw his beloved drone smash into pieces and land just a few feet before him. Smith stood in disbelief for a moment. His mind was fixed on the shocking evidence he had captured with his drone. How could this covert activity occur without anyone's knowledge? More gunfire followed, and Smith desperately attempted to regain control of his senses. Finally, he picked up all the drone pieces and quickly got into his car. He knew exactly what to do: go home, recover the images, and post them online. But during the drive home, Smith was on high alert. To his surprise, it was clear and peaceful. Smith reached home safely, immediately locked all his doors and windows, and began examining what was left of his drone. Thankfully, the SD card was perfectly intact, meaning he could transfer the footage onto his laptop if the drone systems were still active. Smith initiated the download without wasting a second. As the progress bar filled, Smith listened attentively to the fragmented voices. Unfortunately, the gunshots had ruined the camera, and the footage was blurry and pixelated at best. But the audio held promise. The drone had even managed to record the distinct sound of gunshots. Still, the true victory was that the device had recorded a discussion where two people casually discussed breaking several laws. The contents were far more sinister than he had initially expected. While Smith originally planned to leak the information online, he realized it wasn't the best way forward. He listened to the conversation repeatedly and made several copies of the audio and video. Next, Smith contacted his close friend and colleague, a journalist, and sent him the video. Within a few minutes of receiving the video, his friend immediately called him and told Smith that he should hide. His friend was confident that the organization would soon track him and come knocking. But the young investigative journalist didn't think that could happen, so he reassured his friend that he had double-checked and no one had followed him. Of course, Smith was soon going to realize how wrong he was. The next couple of weeks whizzed by, and Smith and his trusted friend began reaching out to their connections and finally put all the pieces together. Over the ensuing months, Smith and his colleague worked tirelessly, interviewing former employees, whistleblowers, and other sources. Their endeavors unearthed further incriminating evidence, solidifying their case. And of course, their entire case depended on the drone's video and audio. The duo was finally happy with their evidence and arranged a meeting with a reputable news organization. With pride, they presented their findings, which were met with admiration and an agreement to publish the story promptly. However, fate had a different plan in store. The next day, Smith was jolted awake. Someone was forcefully pounding on his front door. Before he could react, the door burst open and armed men stormed into his home. In an instant, they seized Smith, blindfolded him, and whisked him away in a waiting vehicle. Smith didn't have much time to comprehend what was happening to him, but one thing was clear. Someone had leaked the evidence to the organization and had exposed Smith's involvement, resulting in his abduction. The investigative journalist had no idea where he was being taken, but he guessed he was being driven to the fortress. Smith wanted to stay composed before the abductors and refused to show any fear. Thankfully, he had made several copies of his research and sent it to many colleagues, so his disappearance would only fuel the fire against this organization. Above all, Smith trusted his colleague to help him escape this situation. They had a secret way to make sure they were safe. Every morning, they would use this signal. When Smith didn't answer his friend's call, he knew there was a problem. Smith's friend knew people in the FBI and gave them all the information about what happened to Smith. Luckily, within a day, the FBI quickly got ready and went into the company's place. They rescued Smith and caught the people who did it.